Dave, I've observed with you how you've now come into this new setup and you've been quite deliberate around not trying to impose your way or your values or a set of values on the wall, so to speak. Is there a specific reason why you haven't done that? There's obviously a lot of narrative and early work that's been done by people saying, okay, let's put some values up on the wall, let's put a vision, this is going to be our purpose, this is what we're going to stand for. You've kind of done it slightly differently. Would you care to just share a little bit as to why and your method around that?
Oh, I guess all we want to do is, we want to listen to the players. The players have I guess an underlying rhythm about them. They have a DNA that makes them who they are. And I think if you're going to play for something meaningful, you're trying to bring that out. You're trying to put that into words and into actions. And I just think it would be very full of myself, very arrogant to sort of arrive in a new place and just from day one think that I know what those things are. I'm just not a big believer in words like resilience and respect and hard work, and I just don't think those things have any bearing 5 minutes from the end of the game in a tough game. They are important from an organisational point of view because they provide a filter to how you evaluate your decision making processes. Would we accept a casino as our sponsor, for example? Like, that is driven by what we've decided are our organisational values. But in terms of inspiring a team or motivating a team and building cohesion among a team, I'm not sure those things serve that purpose.
You were described in an interview the other day by Walkinia as reminding him a little bit of Eddie Jones with your intensity. I don't know if that's a compliment or not, but I have to ask him. But this thing of intensity, Dave, there's a lot of talk these days around, care for your people, be good to your people, etc., etc. What I've observed with you is you are that, but there's absolutely non-negotiable standards around intensity. Just a little bit of your thinking around the why of intensity and the how.
Yeah, those two concepts, kind of enjoyment, I would say. Care is one version of that, but enjoyment and intensity are not mutually exclusive. In fact, I think they're very supporting ideas. Because for me, my experience is that elite players really take a thrill out of two key things. One is getting better. If they feel like they're improving, they get a tremendous satisfaction from that. And the second thing is competition. They are to get a professional sports contract. You have, even if you're a happy-go-lucky guy on the surface, somewhere very, very shallow below that is a really competitive side. So as soon as you create those two things in an environment, I think you get real enjoyment. And then those two things are not possible, I don't think, without intensity. I haven't met any top teams in the world that I've been lucky enough to visit or something that don't have intensity. We also have in our group, we call it as staff, we refer to it as rewards culture, which is, yes, we're trying to drive intensity, but we're trying to do that through pointing out the good that's happening in the environment rather than the bad. Even if somebody makes a mistake, we try as much as possible to talk about how it should be done, what we'd like to see, rather than hopping on the error itself. And so the way you word that is just important, but that doesn't mean it can't be intense. And we certainly expect an intensity in the way that we train. We expect an intensity in the way that we prepare, our intensity of thought in the way that we think about the game. All of those things have to be high because
it's very habitual rather than we'll turn on the intensity and we'll turn it off. Feels for me like it's an always on thing.
It is. I guess in some ways, we've also been quite careful to delineate between the times when we're relaxing as a team and when we're working. So the expectation is when we're working, and it's live fire, and we're trying to do things at a game-like intensity. All of our preparation like that, and we do that through simple ways, like we just split. Where we have our meetings, if we're on the road, we don't meet in the hotel, for example. We meet at the training ground. So the team meeting and all the strapping and things like that will happen at the training ground rather than in the hotel, because the hotel for us is like our home. So there's a very clear delineation for the players that when we're in the hotel, we're relaxing as if you would be at home. But as soon as we get on the bus, that's our work time and the expectation changes. And we've been intentional about the way that we try to build things around our environment to create a clear delineation for the players.
But Dave, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I think the one, you just used the word now, intentional. And what I've noticed is you are quite clearly intentional about almost everything you do. From what question you ask in a meeting, to how you treat someone, to how we run a practice. And I think that's been a massive learning that I've seen in you is the intention to things. And I think a great trait, you know. If I can ask you one last question, if you were to go back, and let's say you got to the latter end of your career and you wanted to go and coach schoolboy rugby, and you've learned some things now where you are, what do you think, if there was sort of one or two errors that you made that you're like, geez, I want to replay those again? Or if you were to say, right, I've learned this now, I would make sure that I focus on that because I know this now about creating a great environment.
Oh, geez, and there's more than one or two. I think the biggest thing if I were to coach schoolboys is just recognizing that most schoolboys are playing for fun. You know what I mean? Like if you take the youngest guy in the Springbok team, I'm not sure who that would be at the moment, or in the Australian team, that's probably Jack Maddox, who's with us, was 20. He was on tour, and the oldest guy probably on the interview tour was maybe Stephen Moore. So he's about 36, I think, 35, 36. That doesn't represent even one guy for every year of school, you know. So if you take all grade 0 to grade 12 across the country playing rugby every Saturday morning, you take all the under 16s playing, I guess statistically less than one of those guys is going to be a Wallaby or be a Springbok, you know. The rest of us are all just playing for fun, you know. The rest of us are just doing this to build the values that, you know, the great things you get out of sport and enjoy ourselves. So the first thing, you've got to have fun, you know. I remember I dropped a player for a big derby game when I was coaching a schoolboy team. He'd played most of the season and I dropped him for the big game, and it's just something I really regretted doing, you know. Like, whether or not it was the right rugby decision doesn't really matter now, but I think in the context of, like, we're there to have fun, and it just wasn't, from a personal point of view, it just wasn't the right thing to do, you know. I think the other thing that I probably bring in is just that keep the game really simple. You know, like we want to, when we I think when we start coaching, probably even now, it's just try to show how clever we are all the time. You know, just try to overcomplicate a really simple game. Like it's really 15 guys trying to get a white ball over the line against 15 other guys. You know, and it's it's just a very simple game. And I think as soon as we understand that, and our job as teachers or coaches is to take sometimes relatively complex ideas and just make them really simple and really engaging for the players, you know. So those are probably the two things I would focus on.
Thanks, Dave. It's been awesome. I want to finish by asking you a question, and then your answer will be a question. I've noticed that your ability to ask great questions is an absolute strength of yours. If you're going into a struggling team or a struggling business for that matter, what is the first question you would ask?
Oh, I think the first problem you want to solve is why are you there? What are you trying to do there? What's the purpose of you being there? You know what I mean? Like, I think if you get people to flush that out, and it can be a real simple thing. It can just be, you know, spending time together. It can be, you know, whatever. But that really simple question, it then provides, I guess, the fuel or the engine to sort of move everything forward. You know, I think if you can't answer that question, you might as well pack up and go home.
Cool, Dave. Thanks so much, man.
Thanks.
Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Buddy.